So I know you guys are going to have a lot of questions, so I may just, we'll probably start off with 1 or 2 questions from here, and then I'm just going to throw it out to you guys, because I'm sure you're going to have a lot of stuff that you want to ask. So, the first thing I actually wanted to talk about, because I'm not sure everybody, actually knowing most of this room, you guys probably know this, but Lar and Kane, Friday 7 wasn't the first time you guys worked together in a film. You guys were both in another, shall we say, a little bit more weirder horror franchise with House.
Well,
and
it
House
had
2.
Kane, so it would be more weird.
Well, I mean, it's also the franchise that became known because they just basically swapped out Cheers actors and didn't really explain why.
Right, that's true. Right, House 2. It was fun, super fun.
Did you guys work a lot together on that project, or?
No, my character was in the real world, reality, and you were pretty much in an alternate reality, correct?
Well, yeah, I mean, I was doing, I did stunts in the movie and played a character, but did all the House movies, which I really enjoyed. I loved those movies.
Yeah, so much
The
fun.
first one especially was so different. And,
I loved it.
Yeah, so that's where we first worked together, and when John Beekler told me that he had hired her to be the lead in the new Friday movie, and I wasn't confirmed yet. And he was fighting for me to play the character, but people were like, who's he? We've never heard of him, so I had to do a screen test.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so, and that started it all.
And Parry, you started off a little bit differently. You were doing a lot of television work until basically Better Luck Tomorrow came around, and that just basically seemed to be a film where there was a lot of like-minded people who were just pissed off and not getting any opportunities and decided to do it on their own.
Right, yeah, it was, it happened in, I think, 2002, the movie came out, and it was all Asian American cast, which is like unheard of, and like the director Justin Lin wrote it and directed it, and now he does all the Fast and Furious movies, Star Trek, and so he basically took the movie out to Hollywood, and he said, "We love this movie, we love the script. We'll give you all the money you want as long as you replace it with white actors." And the guy, he's like, "What?" But I mean, they're giving him a lot of money. They're giving him like $1 million, which in the independent world is huge, And we made it only for $250, so we're getting 4 times the budget. And then he, to his credit, he says, "I'm not going to make any excuses. I want to make it the way I want to make it." And he hadn't made any movies really. He only had one other one, but he stuck to his guns. We made the movie. He maxed out all of his credit cards, went $250,000 in debt. Was sleeping on the floor, was eating oatmeal while he was editing it, and then it was like a Cinderella story. All of a sudden, we got into Sundance, which only 16 films out of like 24,000 that submit get in. We got in there. All of a sudden, then we were screening. People loved it. They wanted to buy the movie. They were lowballing us, and then all of a sudden, Roger Ebert stood up and said, he was, saying this movie is amazing and great, and all of a sudden there was a bidding war on our movie. And all of a sudden, and I'm the lead actor in the movie, and all of a sudden the movie gets purchased by Paramount, we get released, we are the #1 movie that weekend. I mean, it's like a Cinderella story, so it was really cool.
It's really cool. You ever call up Justin and be like, "Hey, I can, be Fast and Furious too"?
Yeah, but he's put the other actors in, except for me. So Adam Green's my Justin Lin.
And speaking of it, you've kind of become, I guess in a way, the good luck charm, whereas Kane's kind of the main focus of the Hatchet films. You're kind of like the good luck charm of the Hatchet series.
Yeah, he just keeps you around because so yeah, he just he tries to. First movie he wanted to work with a lot of people again, but he's like, oh darn, I can't because I keep killing them all off. And then I said, I kind of inceptioned him. I said, well, you did say he had a brother in the first one. Just saying.
Did you really bring it?
Yeah. So I think I Inception him. While he's writing it, and then so now it's become a thing now.
He cut his fucking head off with a shovel, and he comes back.
It's a soap world too.
You played like 3 different characters through the course of the film.
Yes,
right?
yes. And it's weird. Sometimes when today, when I'm signing, sometimes people bring up Hatchet 3 or 2, whatever. I usually sign my character's name, and I always have pause and say, Okay, number 2, I'm Justin. Okay, Justin. Number 1, I'm Sean. I don't want to mess it up, you know?
And after the first movie, every time we would get another Hatchet script from Adam, everybody was most excited to see where is Parry going to show up. How is he going to be in this one?
And it just says my name in the script too. It's just like Parry Shen, right?
So Laura, I wanted to ask you about working with Terry Kaiser in 7. I mean, he's a favorite character actor of mine, and he's just so lovably creepy in that movie.
He's so creepy in the film, but he is such a sweetheart, and he's an acting coach also. So we run into each other quite a bit, and he was a lot of fun. He was a lot of fun, and he was very scary when he wanted to be.
Fair enough. And then, of course, he became Bernie not long
Right.
after that.
Oh my gosh, that had to be very hard to shoot.
So I'm actually going to throw it out to some questions for you guys now. So first up.
So this is obviously directed directly at Kane. I'm Lindsay.
Hi.
Also, I'm Mother Mayhem for anybody else that watches YouTube. Woo! But one, yay! But I know you get asked pretty much every single convention what your favorite kill is.
Yes.
I want to know what your least favorite kill is that you thought could possibly have been better.
Wow.
That's a good.
And not just Jason, but also Victor, possibly.
Any of your roles, pretty much. Obviously, everybody's probably going to want to hear more of the Jason roles or the Victor Crowley roles, but
Yeah, I mean, probably in part 8, and Jason Takes Manhattan, I kill a cook in a cafe by throwing him into the mirror. I should have done much more because he's the guy that became Jason after me. So I believe I should have fucked him up a little bit more. Never had that question before.
That's
Very
good.
well.
That was a good question. Anybody else? Come on, guys. You're a packed room and nobody has a question?
I'm going to have to go
In the
again.
back.
So I recently rewatched a bunch of the Jason movies, and I think it was like parts like 5 through 8 were like pretty much bloodless. And then watching the special features, I saw that they actually did record them like violently, but then they kept getting the ratings. People kept sending it back so they could take it out. So after like a couple of those, was it just like we're just gonna do it anyway for the fun of it to see what we can get, or kind of just like, oh, they're just gonna screw us again?
Well, I mean, you always hope that, you know, the timing of our movie was the absolute worst for trying to get something on the screen that's graphic. For some reason, that time of filmmaking, they were taking out everything. Every single kill I did in that movie was so crazy and over the top, and it was cut down to nothing. And people still love the movie.
Yeah.
So it's amazing to think of how much more it would have been enjoyable had they left some of the makeup effects in. These people spend months developing something and they shoot it and it looks amazing on screen, and some fucking asshole in an office, no, I don't think the public should see that. You know, it's just so frustrating, and every single kill in part 7 was cut completely. I mean, when I grabbed Vince, who's the guy that I smashed his head?
Eddie, was it Eddie?
No,
Smash his head.
crushed his head down, yeah. Anyway, that kill looked so amazing in dailies because it was a prosthetic head that Beekler built that I could crush down to the size of like a softball, and the eye went flying out and fucking juts of blood, and it looks so amazing. And when you see the movie, it's just almost nothing.
Trickle of blood.
Yeah, trickle of blood down the face, that's it. So, you know, the fact that people that's still my favorite Friday movie that I did, and always will be, just because of the storyline. You know, there's no other
We have fun
time.
bringing the story to life.
Yeah, no other time did anyone ever have that effect on Jason
Right.
before. So as a stunt person, it was great for me because she made so many things happen to Jason that it was a lot more enjoyable to film it as a stunt guy.
Acting it, stunt and acting. Yeah.
This is for Kane. How did you feel being able to do the motion capture for the game? Seeing, you did get fucked out of doing the remake and also.
Well, that's your words, not mine. But
I
happen to agree, but-
But how did you feel being able to get back in and now the true fans can actually, you're playing Jason again?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, I was completely felt honored that the game producers came to me,
Yeah.
and in their mind, they said, there's no other person that should be doing the motion capture for Jason in a video game than you. So I was very flattered and very happy because there are, quite a few other guys that played the character that they could have gone to. And maybe even somebody that didn't play the character. It wasn't necessary. But in their minds, it should be me. So I was very happy, and we did motion capture off and on for almost 2 years for the game. So it's a process, and it's a weird thing to try and be scary wearing spandex, but maybe I'm not sure. Maybe that's I look scarier that way. I don't know. It was, I've talked about this in interviews, but I didn't realize that the gaming system of motion capture was so sophisticated that I could stand there on the motion capture stage in the spandex suit with all the sensors on it and look at a monitor and see myself live animated as Part 7 Jason. While doing the motion capture, I felt weird wearing what I was, but I could look at the screen and do movements and see that's how it's really gonna look. So maybe that's a common thing, but I was very surprised that they had that capability, so that made it easier. And then once I'm in the mode of performing as the character, it really doesn't matter what I look like, I just act the same way. So, but I was very happy. Still
How hard was it to keep Victor Crowley a secret?
It actually wasn't too bad, just because it was always on the forefront of, well, for me, it was on our minds, and we would, with all the cast members, I would say, like, we should leak, like, misinformation and show us in, like, Paris or something like that, like, oh, having a great time, like, there's no way they could have shot this because he was in Paris, And then after a while, because I didn't talk about it, I actually kind of forgot that we did it. Because it was like almost like 9 months, and then
Yeah.
and then when Adam was like, we're ready to go, and I was like, what? Oh yeah, because you just you're forcing yourself not to talk about it and think about it, and it's just there was really no upside to talk about it. It was like there was so much, just to see the reaction that was going to happen. You've never seen something like that happen before, so it just behooved us to shut up about it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think it's easy for us to keep the secret because we have something to gain from keeping the secret. But I was surprised that the crew, who are just day workers, day players on a movie, they still kept the secret. And they have no really motivation to do so other than Adam saying, hey, please don't
do
say
it."
anything.
Right.
But, progressively, as Parry will tell you, the budget went down on each Hatchet movie. So by the time we did Victor Crowley, the crew was quite small. So it's fewer people that you have to worry about blabbing. But, I still was amazed that it didn't seem to be a big shock when it came out. It was so much fun to see the reaction. Because for, months, be at a convention and people come up and say, oh, I hope you do another Hatchet movie. And I'm like, They say, do you think you will?
Already done.
In the back
Already
of my
done.
mind, I'm saying, I've already seen it, so
The
who knows, maybe.
Just to show how committed everyone was in keeping it, Felissa Rose, who plays my publicist in Victor Crowley, she is really good friends with Caroline Williams, who is in number 3, right? And Caroline, when she was invited to the 10-year anniversary screening, which was the secret screening of Victor Crowley. Felissa said, I just had lunch with Caroline, and she came up. We were eating lunch, and somehow word got out that there was a 4th one. She's like, hey, I just found out. I think they're going to show. I think there's a Hatchet 4. And then Felissa said, no. I had like text messages. I'm like, how did you know? Oh my gosh, he's gonna kill you when she finds out. She's like, I know, I felt so bad, but I had to keep it quiet. And then so during the screening, I'm only watching Caroline. And as soon as the movie ended, Caroline walks up, storms up to Felissa, smacks her on the arm and goes, you bitch! And she's like, I'm so sorry. But I mean, could you imagine? Like Caroline's like, what?
And for regular shock stock attenders, that should also pay close attention to, because they were both here last year.
Oh, wow.
So they're both in the same room for the entire convention, and of course Felissa didn't tell her. Next question, Eric. Yep.
I had a question for Lar. Part 7 is one of my favorite of Fridays, and I noticed you had to kind of maintain a very hysterical kind of pitch throughout the entire thing. You didn't really have very many scenes where you could relax. What was it like trying to maintain that kind of energy level the whole time, and what the rest of the cast be like when they can kind of take it easy?
You know, it actually was quite a challenge because we shoot out of order, of course, and I had to wait on him all the time because, you know, they were doing something to his face or something. Or,
I was a prima donna.
have to wait.
I don't feel like killing today.
Wait on
How would
Kane.
you like killing Kane?
Yes. And as an actress, it was really fun because I didn't use any artificial tears, didn't really know about them, and had to really script out the level of the crying and hysteria, which level she was at each point when she was trying to figure out what was reality and not. So as an actress, I really enjoyed that part, but it did give me a migraine a lot through the shooting too. So, but that's okay. I got the effect I wanted.
But let me also say one other thing about that, is that I don't know if you guys have had this happen before or since, but on part 7, we shot not just out of order, which is very common, obviously, but we shot for 4 weeks in Los Angeles all the interiors of the movie. And then we went to Alabama and shot all the exteriors. So imagine the difficulty for her going from a scene where she's of one level of emotion going outside, for instance. Now she has to remember how that was a month ago when she shot the interior part of that exact same shot. So I was always amazed that you could pull that off.
I have an acting school in Dallas, Actors Audition Studios, and I developed a technique for actors called script diagramming to break out their entire scripts. My students work a lot. They're really good. I'm very proud of them. And I developed a kind of like script supervision. I took that idea, and then with an actor where I break it down and teach them how to break each individual scene down exactly so that they know more than anyone in the movie, basically, so they know exactly where they leave off and start again, because you never know when you're going to have to go back and forth. And then we did have to go back in LA and shoot more exterior scenes after we had already done them in Atlanta, with more crying, with more dead bodies.
We shot, it's called pickup shots.
Pickups,
At the very end of March that year, we were doing pickup shots, and the movie was in theaters May 13th. For a director, that is incredibly difficult to do. You're still shooting, and your movie has to be in a wide release in 6 weeks.
And to that point as well, you're still shooting on film at this point. It's not like now where you have Video Village set up. You can go back to your previous scene that you shot a month ago and kind of look it over again before you went. You couldn't do that.
No, they just talked us through it.
Makes it even more difficult and even more kind of miraculous that you're able to do that.
And for me, you know, if I was inside and maniacally killing someone And then I go outside and I have to remember, oh no, that's right, I'm always fucking crazy.
You're always crazy.
Forget it, it doesn't matter, I was always on the same. I didn't have any emotion, god damn it.
Well, he had emotion when he threw the TV across the room because they couldn't get that to work right. So he just said, Lar, step back a little bit, and he threw the TV. Okay. Yeah. That was funny.
Next question.
I'll do another one.
Sure, go ahead.
I'm interested to hear if any one of you, do you have a dream role or franchise that you would like to continue? Like for yourself, Parry, would you want to do more Hatchet type movies, or do you want to branch out into another franchise? Do you want to do more Jason films, or do you want to maybe go like Nightmare on Elm Street and Kane? You're kind of all over the place. So what else would you love to do?
Kill anyone.
Well, Lar was already on. She already did something with Freddy.
I did the Freddy's Nightmares TV series,
See, and
right?
I never watched
Which
the
was
show.
so great. For me, it was my twilight zone. And the director of Part 6 cast me in that, part 6 of Friday the 13th. And so I've been able to do a lot of television and different films. And I really did want to take Tina further in her character. That's why I didn't do Part 8 when they came to me with Part 8 and they wouldn't let me read the script. And I'm like, well, that hasn't worked well for the other girls. They start and they don't make it long. And so I'm like, no, Barbara, let me read the script. And she wouldn't. So I wouldn't do Part 8. And it was so hard because I love Friday the 13th. So I didn't do it. And I always wanted to bring Tina back with her powers and have a daughter have equal powers and kind of a situation. But I like all kinds of roles. I like scary films. I really do, and I also like the soaps, and I like crime scenes. So yeah, I like to do a lot of different roles. I have one coming out called Expulsion, and I play a very scary woman who's desperate to get the hole closed in the universe because she's been time traveling so much. She's like kind of peeling away. So that should be out shortly. So it's pretty cool.
I grew up with comics, so there's not many people who know more than comics than I do. So like the fact that all these comic movies have come out are like, it's like a dream come true, right? So I would love to be part of some sort of canon of something that I've read and just be a part of that. I mean, that just would be really cool. I kind of got a little taste of that with. I'm one of the characters in Mortal Kombat, so I do have like some abilities and things like that. But I mean, to be part of like a Marvel or DC situation that I've read, that would be really cool. Yeah.
We had a House 2 comic book. We had a House 2 comic book. It was out, yeah. No, it's pretty cool.
Yeah.
I've got one.
And, you know, as working as a stunt person for so long before I had any, you know, mainstream notoriety, I was able to work in a lot of very cool, different kinds of movies. And sometimes playing little roles, like in Daredevil, I was the guy that beat up Daredevil's father in the alley, and so that was cool because I was also a comics guy. Then I did Monster with Charlize Theron, and she won an Oscar for it. So
You're welcome.
oh, I gotta do that.
Thank you.
I did a scene with someone who won an Oscar for that role.
That's pretty
yeah.
awesome.
Oh, how did I not think of that?
That's some good trivia right there.
But you know, recently I've been offered all kinds of different roles because, you know, fortunately, if you have a name in horror, then horror movies want to have a horror name associated. So they know that the best way to interest somebody like me in their horror movie is to offer me a role that I never expected that I would do. And that makes me think, that's interesting, and then I'll consider it more. If it's the killer, I mean, I'll always enjoy it, but it's not as intriguing. Like, you know, doing, well, for instance, when I did Holliston with Adam Green, he said, I want you to be in Holliston, I want you to, you know, play yourself. I said, well, that'd be pretty easy then. And he goes, one of the storylines I want you to do is, I want you to become suicidal whenever anybody mentions Freddy versus Jason. And I looked at him and I said, are you fucking kidding me? You know how sensitive that subject was for so long. And then once he brought it up and I started thinking about it, I said, you know what, maybe it's time.
Yeah.
I can let it go. So I did that, and that was the whole storyline of my scenes, is that somebody says Freddy versus Jason, I try and hang myself.
I would ask him if he was homicidal as opposed to suicidal.
I had a question about Part 7 and shooting schedule. Like, so many movies go over schedule, especially on like when you've got so many special effects and so many things that could go wrong. On something this intense, did you stay on schedule? Were you like
I don't know.
constantly being berated to like?
Woke up the crack of dawn. I cried all day,
Yeah.
and then I collapsed and woke up the next day, and then he
It
kind
must have
of
been
lined,
terrible for you.
he lined me up in another room, and it was,
3.5 hours of fucking
I don't
glue.
know how I ever did that
Every
makeup.
morning
Oh my
before you start
God.
shooting.
I don't know how he did it.
Yeah, and so, but as far as I remember, we stayed
Yeah,
right
we
on
were on
schedule.
That's
We-
insane. I don't know
and
how you did it.
The hard part was, for me, physically, was it's hard to play the character because of the long hours. Literally 3.5 hours in the makeup chair before you start shooting. So if you have a 6 a.m. call, you're in the makeup chair really early.
Yeah.
And you shoot all day, because, you know, you're a character
Or
that's
all
in
night.
the movie, or all night,
Or all
yes.
night.
And then it takes an hour and a half to take the shit off. Then you go back to the hotel and go to bed or back home.
Yeah.
So after 2 months of that, the last 2 days of principal photography for me were the underwater scenes at the beginning of the film. So I'm thinking, well, it'll be fairly easy. I'll be underwater off and on. Well, it turned out I had to be underwater for 4 hours at a time without coming up, because I was cabled to the bottom of the pool by my ankle, because the foam latex that I'm wearing, very buoyant. So I couldn't just stay underwater when I wanted to. I had to be held under. So I had a hookah system, scuba system, that my buddy Alan, the stunt guy, would man for me. He's underwater as a diver. He'd take my regulator, I'd hold my breath, put the hockey mask on, do the things where I'm held down to the bottom, long panning shots, and I could hear Beekler through a system that he could be outside the pool talking to me and tell me what's going on. Then he'd cut. Alan would come back, I'd purge the regulator and breathe again. But I was underwater for 4 hours at a time.
No.
Wow.
And do off and on, and it's a weird feeling, I'm telling you. When you're holding your breath, and you're getting toward the end of that fucking breath,
Yeah.
and he hasn't cut yet. So, not only does he have to cut, then Alan has to come back in, and I always pictured Alan waiting for cut, and then coming in, swimming in, and said, "Oh shit, wait."
I forgot. Oh my gosh.
But
Oh,
it
man.
never did. It came close a couple times where I was really getting close to the end, but it's a tough way physically to end shooting of a physical movie already, so.
And we're all gonna see this movie in a different way now.
A different
After
way.
watching it, we're all gonna go, "Holy shit, that is
And I
scary."
will not work in water. When
Yeah.
Baywatch came around, they were coming to all of the actresses and were like, "You want us to swim in the Santa Monica Bay in a swimsuit in that bay for how long?" I'm like, not doing water. I've seen water. I see what's happening. No.
And meanwhile, there's tours down in Bay Minette. Was it Bay Minette?
In Alabama.
Yeah, where we were shooting. It wasn't Bay Minette
Where
there.
did they net? I'm not
That's
sure.
where we were saying. Anyway, there's tours on that body of water that showed where we shot different scenes. Part of the pier is there and stuff like that. So they give tours for tourists, and they show the lake where I was underwater. And somebody told me that, and they said, yeah, we saw the part of the lake where you were actually underwater. And I said, what? It was a fucking diving pool, a scuba diving pool that was dressed to look like the lake. So,
Right.
yeah.
Yeah.
One more quick follow-up.
Quick follow-up.
Do you get the same 12-hour turnaround that like everyone else gets? Like, so if you're in there at 3 a.m. one day doing makeup, does that mean the next day they have to work around?
They would always try to,
Yeah.
because if they didn't give you the turnaround, then you get a forced call.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And they have
Get
to pay you
paid.
another
Yeah.
grand or something for the day, extra on top of what you're already getting, so they tried whatever they could to avoid that, so.
Thank you.
You mentioned the prosthetics on part 7. I just wanted to ask, was that typical? You've done prosthetics in all the Jason movies, Hatchet movies, everything. Has that gotten better over time, or is it still that huge process? 3.5, 4 hours of sitting there. Yeah.
Well, it has gotten better because it's gone from typically from foam latex, which the removal of foam latex is much longer than silicone. Now they build the makeup with silicone, which I personally think photographs better anyway, because it looks more
Real.
Realistic and the colors are better and stuff, but it's much heavier. So whereas you're used to carrying around 15 pounds of makeup all day, and now all of a sudden it's 35 pounds, that part gets old because it's far more exhausting physically to work in it. But when you come back in after you wrap, and they don't have to use any remover to get the makeup off, they just pull it off, because the silicone, when it's used the adhesive, you can pull it off your face without any remover. So it comes off so much quicker, and that's a relief. So
How long does it take for the full prosthetic for Victor?
About three hours.
So it's about the same.
Yeah, and that has changed over the.
Yeah.
I mean, you can see differences in the makeup throughout the movies, especially the hair. I loved what the hair looked like in the third one. That's my favorite look of the hair, because it was hanging in the face, kind of like Undertaker look, and I thought it looked really good. Then it went back to the frizzy stuff in Victor Crowley again. Still looks good, but I like the other better. But it's just it still takes a good 3 hours, even though it's not a full body. It's just kind of the top torso.
Yes.
In regards to the Hatchet franchise, I noticed that Victor Crowley is a lot more of more of a comedy type movie, like an Evil Dead kind of vibe, or Campy, where the first one was more of a horror movie. Does that change the way that you act in it at all?
The first one wasn't campy?
It was campy, but it had more of a kind of a serious.
I don't know. I thought all of them were pretty campy, but I think that campiness and comedy works so well the way Adam Green does it, because he makes the other characters so entertaining and so fun to watch, and it's not at the expense of the scariness of the movie. So that's a tough thing to do, and he does it masterfully, where you can be laughing at Parry 1 second, and then the next minute I show up and brutally murder somebody, and you're not laughing anymore, and it's such a roller coaster, and I think that's a really entertaining way to watch a movie.
Agreed. Yes.
I actually had a question for Parry. In all 3 of the Hatchet movies, or the first 3 anyways, you're playing a different character each time, and they are very individual characters. None of them really are the same, and I was wondering how you approach that to make every character different.
I mean, it's just basically just doing your homework, and because they are, different people, even though it's played by the same person. But just saying the circumstances, just kind of like, probably what Laura teaches her students, just like how you map out your character. Where the first one, Sean, he just, he doesn't know what he's doing, so he's just kind of just making shit up, and spinning things and doing different accents to like cover. And then the second one with Justin, his intention is really just sole focus of caring for his brothers and what's going on. So that's like his motivation, so that sends him down a different thing where he's not trying to BS anyone. He's like genuinely scared. And then the third one with Andrew, he is just a paramedic, just sees all these bodies all over the place. He's like trying to be a paramedic, like trying to like help everyone. And then you've got this guy saying, hey, I've got these 2 other Asian dudes who look exactly like you. He's like, okay, I get it. We all look the same, right? So, it just, if you kind of just lock it down, it writes itself and it just plays it out organically, you know, and it makes things different, yeah. And then especially with Victor Crowley then, which was the first time where I actually got to not have to start from scratch, because I could build upon like how would this guy be different from what he was 10 years ago, and would he be the same in any way, or how different, and is he ashamed of that he hid, you know, to survive, and how that would affect his actions with this new people in this plane that don't believe him, but he's trying to take care of them because he's trying to like make amends, you know. So
yeah, and just a quick follow-up, which death did you prefer, Sean's or Justin's?
let's see. Oh wow. You know what? Justin's, because there was a lot of stuff that was going on. We had my stunt double. We did. What is it called? It's called a Texas Switch. Is that what it's called? Where
Some people call it.
Oh, okay.
Like that, yeah.
So basically, where they see me, and then they whip to Victor, and then he throws the hatchet, and it whips back to me, and then at that point, when it whips back to Victor, my stunt double comes in with the hatchet already in him, and as we do, and it's like, and then it was this awesome kind of like a camera trick, in-house camera trick, and then when he's grinding away at my head. Just it's like they had this prosthetic just like spewing everywhere. And then at the end of the day, when I was like getting cleaned up, I took out my contacts, like stained red. I was like, oh my God. And ever since then, like either the blood's from me or from someone else getting on me, I have always lost contacts through every Hatchet movie. I'm like, why don't I just take out my contacts during these scenes? I never learned my lesson.
Now, did you purposely make Justin, it seemed to me that Justin was less stereotypically Asian than in the first movie.
Yeah, the first one.
Because he's a different guy, but you made him far less stereotypical.
Yeah, and just less comical. Like he was not like joking around as much as the first one with Sean, you know, because his intended was like looking for his brother who was missing, and he felt guilty because he gave him this job and said, hey, just make some extra money, take these guys on a boat. It's I gave you $50. So yeah. Whereas the first one, you know, it was just Adam let me do whatever I want. The magic trick, and I mean, it's just, you know.
When the audience first saw Andrew show up in the third one, set down the boxes, the Hatchet audience just went nuts because it was him again.
How?
Kane, I wanted to talk a little bit about the new documentary coming out based on. What can we kind of expect from this? Is that type of did they actually follow you around for a while, and does it get a little bit more personal with your story, or is it more a type of career type of retelling?
It's basically the whole life thing again. You know, if you read the book, then you know my story pretty much, but this was a visual, version of it, I guess you could say, with a lot of interviews from people I've worked with over the years. So it's kind of their stories, point of views, and then we also visited some of the places that I talked about in the book. With the camera crew, we went to Hawaii, and I don't know if you guys have read the book, but the balcony that I did my hanging off thing to scare my friends, we went to that exact balcony in Hawaii, just to revisit that place. And then just coincidentally, we were granted access to the burn unit I was in San Francisco, where I finally got to a good place that saved my life. And I hadn't been back there since I was in there. So we just happened to approach them at the time where they were just moving all the patients to a brand new state-of-the-art burn unit in another part of the building. So they let us have access to the unit I was in with all the equipment still in it. So it looked like it was still being used, just that it didn't have patients in it. and it was such a weird experience being back in there and remembering all this shit that happened. So that's all in the documentary, and what people really like about it is that it's, you know, other people's personal accounts of interactions with me and stuff.
So I'm just gonna ask each of you what you got coming up next. I mean, if you look at Kane's IMDb, I think it's got 25 upcoming credits. I'm surprised IMDb doesn't just say I give up. So what you guys coming up next? What do you want these guys to know what they could be looking out for?
Well, I've been working for a while, and the story of my life is called Lucky Girl. I've been through a lot of crazy, unbelievable, crazy things, from stalkings and attacks, and being shot. I got shot at in Texas in my house. Someone. He was a dumbass. He missed. I mean, right Texas. But so I'll be working on that project, and then working with my students, and slowly just coming back to do different things.
The past 5 years, I've recurred on the soap opera General Hospital. So I've been doing that. I still am doing that. I have my characters right now adopting a baby, so I'm gonna have kids soon. I'm sure something bad is gonna happen, because they're like, what could possibly happen? They have my character say, nothing's gonna jinx the adoption, and so something's gonna jinx the adoption. But I just shot this movie with that Bria Grant co-wrote, and her and I, a husband and wife team, we create a time machine, and we send her into the future for like an hour. She comes back, and we're like, oh, this is awesome, we're gonna make so much money. And then the next day, another one of her appears at the same time, and we're like, what is going on? And we like do the math, we find out we messed up, and there's like a looping problem, and then there's like 3,000 of her coming every day at the same time. And so then it becomes a horror movie where we gotta kill them. We gotta kill them all. Yeah, and then she wrote this. Yeah, she co-wrote it, and it's so clever. And there's 3 actors in the whole movie. Yeah, it's Richard Reilly's the 3rd actor.
Oh wow!
And so like it becomes really clever. Like we start getting creative with the kills. We start gassing them to make it easy for us, so we don't have to like actually stab, because it's like, oh my god, that was so hard. And then we start playing with like electricity, and they're like, oh, it smells so bad. No. It's like, and then later they start coming back, and they're already like, they come back, they arrive like hurt or injured or sometimes already dead. We're like, what is going on? And then like there's like weird shit that in the future has obviously happened. So it's just really well written and so clever.
Fun.
Anything that you wanted to talk about, Kate, that's coming up?
There's a number of really cool projects that I'm supposed to be doing. A movie in Spain, a Western, and I just got word that I'm doing a movie that I just found out Thursday that can't talk about it, but I shouldn't bring it up. I know that's right. But it's with some famous comedians. So it's something I was so excited to find out I was going to do. So.
Is he doing this to us?
Because I've worked with some comedians in the past and didn't have great experiences with them. So, but these guys I already know. So.
We won't tell anyone.
Says the YouTuber. So this last parting comment type question with Adam Green going back and putting in a lot of these female horror icons in the Hatchet films and these cameos. Are we ever going to see Lar show up in Hatchet 5?
That would be cool.
Yes.
That would be pretty cool. Yeah.
I guess Parry's got to talk to him.
I don't know.
Thanks,
That
guys, so much for coming out. This was a lot of fun.
Thank you
These
so
guys are
much.
here for the rest of the weekend.